The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Want to shake up your small business marketing? I mean, really shake it up.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Have you been thinking about doing your own podcast?
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Would you like to take your business to the next level?
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
This is the golden age of podcasting, and it's time to stop thinking and start doing.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Get your message heard 24/7, 365, over and over again.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Welcome to the Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Here's the creator and host of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, David Garofalo.
Welcome, everybody, to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is a 21-minute or less weekly podcast to help you get your message out, grow your business, and build your bottom line. Let me help you bring your marketing and advertising into the 21st century. My name is David Garofalo. I've been doing podcasting since 2010 and created a six-figure income from just doing one of my podcasts. This is a 21-minute or less podcast, so let's start the clock. And here we go. Today, we're going to talk about my new podcast, your new podcast. I'm going to begin the process of putting together a brand new podcast from the very beginning and do it right in front of your ears. Last week, we talked about the do-over. It's an attempt to do something after a previous attempt has been unsuccessful or unsatisfactorily done. The purpose is to make it better. In this case, I've been doing a successful podcast called The Cigar Authority. It will be downloaded 2 million times this year alone. I have monetized it into the deep six-figure income and created reoccurring revenue into $250,000 a year of reoccurring revenue on that show, added on to the advertising revenue that happened. Despite that success, I've made mistakes. And with a do-over, I can do a new project. I'm going to try it all over again on a totally different subject and see if I can catch lightning in a bottle once again. We're going to keep the Cigar Authority going. It's making me a lot of money, but I'm going to do a totally different podcast that has nothing to do with that subject matter and see if I can do the things that I did in the 9 years that I've been doing the Cigar Authority podcast. Let me see if I can do it much, much faster because I've learned a lot along the way, and I know you have too. So maybe you do this along with me. It's going to be risky because success or failure, I will be doing it in front of your ears. You're going to see if I make it or break it. Am I just a lot of talk, or can I walk the talk? We're going to find out. This is a whole new project, a different subject altogether, and the question is, can I do it again? Well, let's see. So it begins right now. Last week, I worked backwards to gather some information. I know how long my podcast should be to achieve success. That is about 25 minutes. That's going to be the ideal time that I've determined that's ideal to do a podcast, because that is when people that's their average drive time or the amount of attention somebody will give you on a certain subject matter. The other successful podcast I have, The Cigar Authority, is 2 hours long. Big mistake. As successful as it is, as the money I'm making is coming in, it was a major mistake for me to make it 2 hours. I can never change that now. I have more than 2 hours, more than 25 minutes worth of advertising within the show. But the show that's coming up, the new show that I'm going to be doing, is going to be totally different, and I've decided to make it about 25 minutes long. I know I will give information and some added entertainment, because that is part of the success that happens also. You can't just be talking about the subject matter and that's it, which is what I do here on the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. My driving information is trying to help you do a podcast, but then again have you come here to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe and see the Podcast Cafe and maybe start your own podcast. My problem is that I am talking to people not only in the United States, but talking to people all over the world. Already a great listenership that's happening, but there's very few people that live in my area that would listen to the show, so it made it very tough for me. But I'm moving on. I'm moving ahead with this show. We're still going to teach you about podcasting and figure something else along the way. And maybe I'm going to learn something from the new podcast that'll help this podcast along the way. But anyway, the new podcast, I'm going to give information and add some entertainment to it to keep the listener engaged in the show. And my end game is to turn it into a business and profit from that. So can I pull this off again? We're going to see. First thing is, and I had a week to think about this, I need a subject. What would it be? So I followed myself around, basically. What do I do? I'm in the cigar business. I own three retail cigar shops. I own a retail cigar online business. I own a wholesale cigar company. I own some real estate. I have a family life. I have a wife. I have a daughter. I have a mother. 3 ladies living in the house. But to be honest with you, I mean, I go to work every day. I'm pretty regiment of everything of how I do it. I don't have a lot of hobbies. My hobby began a long time ago, and my hobby became the business I got involved with. And I wasn't always in the cigar business, always in the podcast business, but when I ended up finding these businesses, it became the hobby of it. And if you end up having that, I say congratulations to you, because it does feel like you really don't work so much anymore. You're doing what you love. And when you do what you love, you never work another day in your life, some people will say. But I do work a lot. I put a lot of hours in, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So as I went around looking to see what do I do every day to find a subject for the podcast, basically I wake up, I eat, I go to work, I eat, I go home, I watch some TV. Usually it's old stuff. If it's not news broadcasts or something, it's the old-time stuff. And then I work and go to sleep. And it's the same thing over and over. Again, no hobbies. I kept a log for a few days. It was kind of sad, to be honest with you. I drive a car. I drink coffee. Again, go home, watch TV, have a snack. And then I got it. I like snacks. Everybody likes snacks. Probably. But I got nothing else. I like snacks. So let me go with that. Let me do a show on snacks. I will become, like I did on the cigar podcast, I became the cigar authority, and it happened. If you got some friends that are big into cigars, and you said the cigar authority would probably be me, I self-proclaimed that, and after about 9 years and millions of people listening, I became the authority on the subject. I will become the snack authority. The authority on all snacks. I'm not in the snack business, but I will be. I'm passionate about snacks, and I'm going to turn it into a revenue-building business somehow, and I don't know how that is yet, but I checked to see if there was a podcast called The Snack Authority, and there was not, but there will be. I got the name. The name of the podcast is The Cigar Authority, so I thought I'd keep it simple and make it The Snack Authority. So can I get known around the world as The Snack Authority? I need it to be fun for me, keep me engaged. I need to get a format. I need to get co-hosts. I'm a busy guy. I got a lot going on. It just can't be me. I don't want it to just be me. I need a big listenership. Then I need to monetize it with advertising and reoccurring revenue. So that is the business plan of it. I want it to be fun for myself. I want to get engaged. I want to have co-hosts. I want a big listenership, and I want to monetize it. Easy to say. That's what everybody wants, right? You want a lot of people listening to the show, and you want to make lots of money doing it. But I'm telling you out loud in front of everybody, this is the plan. This is the business plan. Write it, remember it, and then accomplish it. You need to actually have it written down that this is the business plan going forward. So let's start by securing the podcast name. How do you do that? I went through the United Podcast Network and let them, that's here at the Studio 21 Podcast Café, and let them do it for me. That's how I did it. But I asked so I know how it's done so I could relay that to you. You need a host provider for your podcast. We here use Podbean, Podbean. There's a lot of them out there. That's who we use. You can use whoever you like. You can get started for free with any access. And you know it will be successful, and a big congratulations going out to anybody who gets to the point where they have to actually pay for it. I will eventually have to pay for it because I have written down in my business plan that this will be successful and have lots of listeners. So I know going in when this ends up growing what I'm going to end up having to pay. They do the publishing there for free. You upload the show there. You can get your stats there. Importing and migrating all happens on Podbean. That's how we do it. I need a logo for the brand, 300 by 300. I had the United Podcast Network to actually do that for me, and I'll share that with you on the next show of the logo that we're finishing up right now for the Snack Authority. 300 by 300, this is what, when you go on to iTunes, what you'll see. It's important to end up having something because we're talking about monetization. And when we talk about monetization, I may want to use that logo on a mug, like I have on the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe mug I have in front of me. Maybe I want to use it on a shirt. Maybe I want to use it on all kinds of different things. How many colors do you have? How complicated is it? Know this up front of what you're doing as you're creating a logo. Is it a cool looking thing that somebody would actually want to wear, would want on their mugs, would want on a hat? You get into multicolors and stuff and complicated. You get into very costly upcharges for setup fees and things like that. So you keep down to as little color changing as you possibly can. If I can utilize one color and one background color, how does that background color look if it was light? How would it look if it was dark? Because shirts, mugs, different things are going to have different colors. Those are things to think about. Next, with the end game in mind, build ads for reoccurring revenue. How will I put advertising into the show? What could I possibly build into snacks that would be reoccurring revenue? Who would want to advertise on the show? The snack companies? A store that sold snacks? We got to figure that out. I need to format the show, and I'll begin that in just 1 minute right after this.
If you're in the area of Boston North into Southern New Hampshire and you're thinking about doing a podcast, there is a place you have to see. It's called Studio 21 Podcast Café. Located right over the border into Salem, New Hampshire, Studio 21 Podcast Café is a live, working, full-service podcast and vodcast, that's video on demand, studio. All professional equipment, professional producer, and total distribution of your podcast is done for you. Would you like search engine optimization for more people to find your business or better ranking on Google? Well, Studio 21 Podcast Cafe can do it all for you for far less than you think. Schedule a free 21-minute no-obligation consultation by going to www.studio21podcast.cafe. That's studio21podcast.cafe. Now, back to the program.
And we are back, and today we're talking about my new podcast. It's going to be called The Snack Authority. I've begun the process of putting together this new podcast from the very beginning, right in front of your ears. You heard us come up with the plan of what we want to do, the name of it, now how we're securing the name, what we're doing. Remember, this is a do-over, a new attempt or opportunity to do something after a previous attempt has happened and to make it better. I had a successful podcast. I still have the successful podcast. I just want to do it even better. As successful it is, I want to make it even better, easier, more fun. I'm going to do that by bringing it down, making it shorter, less prep, less work that I have to do. I want a bigger reach of people. Remember, my other podcast is a podcast about cigars, premium cigars. 1 out of 1,000 people use my product. What do you think of the Snack Authority? How many people eat snacks? I'm going to say, I don't know if I know anybody that doesn't. Everybody has a snack now and then. Maybe I have more than everybody else because then again, I am the Snack Authority, or I will be. You're hearing it first right here. It's going to happen. I would begin with monetization in mind. The show needs to work backwards with a business plan, understanding what you're trying to have at the end, and go backwards. My end game has been established. The audience will be bigger because everybody loves snacks. I know I do. I will get a few co-hosts who also like snacks a lot because I want them to be engaged in it. You can't like snacks a little bit. You got to really like them if you're going to do a show talking about it, and you're going to be happier if you do it. I'm going to keep the show down to 25 minutes, drive time, and put a tighter, simpler, more complete format than I have done before in a 2-hour show. So I'm going to work on that to make it as tight, clean, and crisp as possible. I will, of course, have an intro at the beginning of the show, something fun and maybe carnival-like is how I'm envisioning this, that it's the Snack Authority, and it should be a little circus-y carnival, because when I think of carnivals and circuses, I think that's when you have snacks and things. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm talking off the top of my head here as I'm thinking through this. This is not necessarily going to be a kid show. I'm no kid, but it sounds like it could be fun. It's called the Snack Authority. It should be a fun show. I need to look for fun, royalty-free music this week to try to find what I'm looking for. I'm coming up with a script and an introduction I'll put together during the week and tell you where I got it and how I found it and how I put it together so you can do the same if you're putting your show along. What I've learned, and I've taken what I learned the hard way, the mistakes I've made along the road. That's what I'm trying to do here on the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, is teach you not just from successes but from failures, mistakes that have been made along the way, and not trying to repeat those. This is my do-over. This is my chance to do it. I'm going to reach a broader audience. In the cigar world, my audience is very small, and I have to work very, very hard to get an audience built. I did it, but I had to work very hard. I think in the Snack Authority, I think I can build an audience a lot faster. But also when you go broad like that, you do have to worry about your competition. Now your competition could get big at that point because there's a lot of people that probably like snacks. Is there a lot of people doing snack podcasting or digging deep into podcasting, digging deep into snacks? I don't know that yet. That research is going to happen during the week too. This show will start and will need to be talked about the snack of the week. If I'm going to do a weekly show every week, and that's what I need to do because that's another key to success, is to do it over and over and over weekly at the same time if at all possible. Should it be a salty snack or should it be a candy bar? Should I consider them both? Is that even true? Is potato chips and popcorn and peanuts, are those snacks? Or does a snack have to be a chocolate bar or whatever? More research has to be done because I need to know that. So after we introduce the snack of the week, we will then tell the listeners about the product that we're going to eat. Maybe that's where it all started, where we'll come down to, will that be the advertiser? Can that be the advertiser at that point that we're eating their particular product? What will we be asking or digging into during the show? I call it the who, what, where, when, why. That's what I want to accomplish during the show, is to answer those questions all the time at least, right? So you're listening to it. Who are we talking about? What are we talking about? Where are we talking about it? When and why? If I can answer those questions every single time and have those things answered, I can fill in most of the other stuff as it goes along, but those need to be answered. And then we have to eat the actual product that we're talking about. And then I would imagine review it, right? And maybe rate it. Do we say, did we like it or not like it? Do we give it a 100-point scale? People love numbers. Do we give it an A, B, C, D? Do we say this is better than that one? This is all stuff as I put together the format of the show that I have to consider what to do. And I may do the first show, and I may air it or not air it, listen to it first, and decide is that the format I want to go, or try it a couple of different ways and then decide which one to go with, or just change along the way. Do the first show, air it anyway, and then maybe do the second show and do it different, and then see which way I wanted to go. We're going to see. I'm going to do this in front of your eyes. You're going to see it happen as it happens. And then at the end of it, I'm going to tell you what's coming up next week. Tease you to get you to listen to the next show, and maybe it's some sort of snack or something you haven't had in years, or something you never tried before, and you'll care about listening to it and following to the next show, because that's important to bring the person back, right? So the whole thing sounds pretty simple, and it can be. So where is the monetization and the commercial and the ads going to fit into? The first thing we need to do is build the audience. So I know that's what I'm going to do. I can't insert that in yet because I have no audience yet. No listeners yet. We must build it, and then they will come. I have a plan, and I'm going to do it. Do you have a plan? Do you need help in your plan? I'd love to work with you. I think I can help. Contact me at Dave@Studio21 Podcast Cafe. That's Dave@Studio, the number 21, podcast.cafe. Schedule a free 21-minute meeting with me. Let me show you the studio, and we'll talk about your thoughts and plans, and I'll even buy you a coffee. Next week, my show intro and layout will be complete. Wait till you see it and hear it. That's my 21 minutes or less. And we are out of here. You've been listening to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe on the United Podcast Network.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.